covering pallet tracking within riteSCAN. So we're going to go through a brief overview about riteSCAN and then dive a little bit deeper actually into the pallet tracking module, which is something that riteSoft recently released about last fall. So we're very excited about pallet tracking and adding that functionality to help alongside with SysPro. So to introduce myself, my name is Ryan Winnicky. I'm an implementation and specialist with riteSoft, so I assist our customers through the stages of implementation, just ensuring that our products are successfully implemented into your processes throughout your operations with riteSCAN and our products. So if anyone experiences technical issues today, please let us know. You can do that probably through the chat window would be our best bet, and we can try to get those resolved. So if you can't see the screen or are unable to hear me or something comes up, just let us know through the chat window and we'll try to get that resolved for you. Also, as we're going through the presentation, if you have questions, feel free to submit those questions. And then at the very end of the presentation, we'll go through all of those questions and hopefully get your answers for you. But feel free to submit them throughout the presentation as well. So with that, let's kind of get started. To talk a little bit about riteSoft, I'd just like to give everyone a little overview about riteSoft. So if you're not familiar, we were founded in 2006, and riteSoft provides solutions for data collection for small to medium-sized manufacturers and distributors around the globe. Our solutions are very smart, streamlined, simple solutions. We have two of them, one being right-time labor data collection, and then riteSCAN mobile warehouse solution, which works with SysPro. And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit more about today is the riteSCAN solution and even diving into pallet tracking functionality within it. So really our solutions, we try to follow a platform of easy to use software applications that help you optimize and automate your warehouse manufacturing operations in real time. Real time is the key, trying to keep that connection very streamlined with SysPro in accuracy and efficiency out on your warehouse floor. So that's our goal as a company. So today's demonstration, we're going to dive into riteSCAN mobile warehouse with SysPro. I know some of you are current customers and others are potential customers, so we'll kind of go through both of those different situations. And feel free to ask questions as we're going through it, and we'll cover those in the end. So before we get into the actual product, I'll just spend a few minutes talking about why manufacturers and distributors implement these mobile warehouse solutions, and specifically why SysPro customers trust riteSCAN and our solutions out in their warehouse. So to dive in, if you aren't familiar with riteSCAN, we kind of have our product categorized into three different categories: manufacturing, orders, and inventory. And these are functions that come directly from SysPro, and we take those onto the warehouse floor to make these transactions happen where they're actually occurring out on the warehouse floor. We're used worldwide by about 1,400 users in 10 countries in a variety of different industries such as food, biomedical, aerospace, and many other ones as well. Some of our customers include Mitsubishi and Heartland Sweeteners. So we have a wide variety of where riteSCAN can be used, and it's successful in those industries. So what we're kind of really talking about today is pallet tracking, and the tagline is pallet tracking right for you? A lot of customers may be doing some form of pallet tracking today, and it could be a very established process. It could be something that you guys kind of have just started to dive into a little bit and developed your own processes around it. And riteSCAN is bringing that pallet tracking functionality to another level and being able to integrate that pallet tracking with SysPro as well. So pallet tracking in riteSCAN is a feature that adds value above and beyond SysPro, if you guys are aware. Pallet tracking is also known as license plating, and there's pallet ID tags. People call it lots of different things, but really what it ultimately comes down to is tracking items at a common container level. You know, whether you're using pallets or boxes, or if you have large pallets that you're putting items into as well. It's really a wide variety. It's just a matter of managing those bulk items out on your warehouse floor. So pallet tracking, what it does is it really provides you the ability to more easily and rapidly move items with fewer scans. You know, being able to group those items in containers Now transactions can be formed within a single scan or process, moving multiple stock codes or multiple quantities out on your floor, really just streamlining your efforts out in the warehouse when you're already containering and bulking those items together for transactions out on the floor. So let's define, pallet tracking kind of fits into two categories. One being the warehouse, so the warehouse transactions. These are some of the questions we ask our customers as they start to identify how or if they're using pallet tracking or if that's their end goal in mind. Do you receive items on pallets? Are you receiving them into inventory on pallets? Do you store your inventory items on single pallets? And that could be storing items, having multiple stock codes on one pallet. It could be having a single stock code with a bulk quantity on a pallet. But really what it comes down to is, are you moving those items throughout your facility by pallet? So are your transactions happening by pallet? Is a forklift coming and moving it from one bin location to another, and you're issuing that whole pallet to the new location? So some examples of that include just performing inventory transfers much quicker. Transferring entire pallets of items from one warehouse to another warehouse in just one single scan. So now instead of having to move multiple stock codes, if you have multiple stock codes on a pallet, I'm just moving that pallet. It's much quicker and much easier and efficient for your operators to perform those types of transactions. Also, purchase order receipts by pallet. So if you're receiving items from a purchase order and you're receiving them onto a pallet or creating a new pallet that they're being received onto, you can do that very quickly and manage those materials from a pallet level right as they're coming in your door, which helps you streamline your efforts down the chain of operations, being able to consume that pallet in different operations of riteSCAN in your warehouse. So the other thing I like to talk a little bit more about is the manufacturing side of things with pallets. So some of the questions we ask for this are, do you stage your raw materials from inventory for manufacture? So are you having somebody go pick all the items from raw materials and stage them for WIP? Are you creating those kits for production? And that's the other piece of it. So are you having a kit that's created and put on a pallet and staged in the WIP process? So now you can do that with a pallet and manage those types of things. So the other thing is, are you receiving your finished goods onto pallets? And when you're receiving your finished goods onto pallets, it allows you to not only just receive them onto a pallet level, it lets you manage it downstream from there as well. So now when you're moving it from a staging area to a put away area after you're receiving finished goods, you can do that in a bulk transaction as well. So pallet tracking really helps streamline your manufacturing needs as well. It just allows you to quickly find and track job issues. You can also, create and issue a pallet of mixed materials to a job, which is really doing your kit issue in a process. Some people have a differentiator between who's staging the pallet for WIP and who's consuming that pallet for WIP. So being able to facilitate that process in between each of the different operations. Also being able to efficiently group picked items onto a pallet for sales order, is another one. Being able to effectively take that finished goods that you received on a pallet and now consume those finished goods within sales order picking for your bulk orders with customers as well. So now that we kind of talked a little bit about where it's used and how it's used in different people's operations, I'd like to just kind of jump into the actual demo of the product, and then we can take a look at how it's used within riteSCAN. And some of you may be using riteSCAN today, and you know which modules you're using, so you can kind of envision where that fits into your operational flow. And others, this might be a little bit new to you as you see some of the different modules and how they may apply to what you're doing today. So a few of the different modules that we're going to cover today is warehouse transfers, so consuming a pallet in the warehouse transfer process, stock takes, so doing a stock take with pallets as well, PO receipts and sales order picking. We'll go through those two modules as well. And then also the job issue and the job receipt modules. So that's more of the manufacturing side of things. And then at the very end, we're also going to go through pallet maintenance. And pallet maintenance is going to be the management utility that helps control all of these things that are moving in the back end within riteSCAN. So Give me just a second here, and I'm going to actually get my screen switched over to the demo of the product. All right, so all right, so now that we're in the product, let's take a look at where pallet tracking is consumed within riteSCAN. So to start out, we're just going to go into warehouse transfers. And warehouse transfers is going to apply pallet tracking in kind of two different ways that we're going to walk through. So to enable pallet tracking, in the options menu, here's where you're going to have the ability, if you're familiar with riteSCAN, to select using pallets. And if it's something that you're always using pallets, you can set, it's going to remember your settings for what you're using in each of the modules. So there's a nice streamlined effort to how you can facilitate this in your operations. So to enable pallet tracking, we're going to just start by doing a pallet that we want to transfer. So give me just a second here. We're going to set our options to single pallet. So what single pallet is we're just moving this single pallet from one warehouse to another warehouse location. So if we enter our pallet ID, you could scan this information if you have your pallet tags all labeled. You can scan this information right into a system just as you would do a typical stock code barcode, but now you're scanning in that pallet. So what I can also do is take a look at what that pallet contains in this query here. So I can see that this pallet consists of two stock codes, A100 of quantity of 5 and A101 with a quantity of 10. So you can see what your pallets are made up of. So I can see this pallet right now is in warehouse E, bin location E. So what I'm going to do next is I want to move it to warehouse N. So I'm just going to put in my warehouse N location here and post that transaction. So once I post that transaction, it's going to move all of the contents within that pallet into the new warehouse N location, and it's going to keep that consistent with SysPro and those goods that are being moved on the pallet as well. So the other concept that I want to go over is moving contents from one pallet to another pallet. So we're going to go back into our options, and now instead of using a single pallet, we're going to do a to and from pallet. So I'm going to put in the stock code that I want to move, and I want to move A100. So we're going to move that stock code, and now it's where I'm going to scan in my pallets that I'm moving it from. So I'm going to move it from pallet P100 and move it to pallet P102. So these are license plates that I already have on my pallets that I can scan right into the system. Select OK, and then post this transaction. So as soon as, oops. So this is where it still goes through that validation process to make sure that when I'm entering all this information, it knows exactly, and it's still validating against my inventory that I have within SysPro. So for example, if I just want to move one here, I'm going to post that transaction, and then it's going to make sure that I'm moving it from one warehouse to another. And as you notice here, I have my from warehouse and my to warehouse as both ends. So you would want your pallets to be moving from one warehouse location to another warehouse location. And this would be the same application as if you have a multi-bin warehouse. You could apply these same concepts that we're doing in warehouse transfers to bin transfers. So if you're moving one pallet from one bin location to another bin location, you can definitely do that within the warehouse transfer process. So the next module that we're going to take a look at is stock take. So with stock take, you can perform the stock take process that's set up in SysPro and actually consume the data on a pallet level. So if I don't want to capture each stock code per se, and I have pallets that are already bundled and wrapped, and I know that exactly what's on that pallet is correct, I can just scan the pallet ID to be able to capture that stock take process and do my counts just as I would do today in riteSCAN with stock codes. So for example, I'm going to scan my pallet P103 that I want to do a count against, and this is a count that I have set up, and when I take a look at this, I'm going to notice that I'm counting my stock code A121 on this pallet with a quantity of 10. So as soon as I post this transaction, it's going to count that against the stock take and update SysPro's stock take with counting A121 quantity of 10. So really what it does, it allows you to capture a stock take process if you want to do it from a high level of just managing pallets. You can do that very quickly by just scanning the pallet ID. However, if I wanted to go back to doing typical stock codes, all I would have to do is come in, select none, and now I would be back in my stock code stock take process. So very quick and very easy. You can bounce back between the two and still handle doing different modules that way. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is the orders process. So when I go into an order here, we're going to go into the purchase order receiving module. So when you're receiving the goods in, so I'm going to pull up my purchase order from SysPro here. And you're going to notice I have two line items to receive in. So I have a quantity here, or the first line item that I can receive in, and then my second line item. So I want to receive both of these onto a single pallet. So what I'm going to do is open up my pallets, and you're going to notice now it allows me to select a pallet that I wanted to put it to. I could select an existing pallet, so if you guys already have your pallets pre-labeled with a license plate and you're reusing those pallets, I could just scan in that pallet ID at this point. However, if I want to generate a new pallet at this point, so for example, if both of those items came off the truck on a pallet and I just want to now receive them onto that pallet and give that pallet a license plate, I could generate an ID at this point. So generating an ID, in the configuration of pallet tracking, you're able to set up how you want to generate your IDs. You can set up what you want to prefix it with and the number of numeric values that you want to follow that as well, so that it's going to generate a unique ID for each pallet that's created. So I can select OK because I generated a new pallet ID. And now I'm going to receive the quantities that I want to receive in. So I'm going to receive in the outstanding quantity of 2 for this. And then I'm going to also receive in the outstanding quantity of 4 for this. And we're going to put both of these onto this new pallet that we just created. So as soon as I select post, it's going to give me a message to say, the pallet that we generated doesn't exist. Are you sure you want to create this pallet? So I'm going to select yes here. And that allows me to create the new pallet, and now both of those contents are going to be stored on that pallet. And in my printing process, I would be able to add my pallet ID as a printing functionality. So if when I'm receiving it onto new pallets, if I want to print my license plate tag at that point, I could print that information right from my print window here and select print, and it's going to print out that information plus the labels for each of the stock codes that I received in as well. So it's a nice streamlined process for being able to receive items right in onto a pallet in your operations that can be then consumed. It can be transferred through warehouse transfers, bin transfers, or anything else down the line as well. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is the sales order picking process. So if you have people that want to pick and stage a pallet for a sales order, or you're staging a pallet from, let's say, a finished goods that is for a specific order, and you can pick that pallet against the order. So what we're going to do is take a look at a sales order. So I'm going to pull up one of the sales orders that we have coming from SysPro. We can view what's expected on this order. So I can see here there's each of these stock codes with back order quantities here that we want to receive in and move into a ship status. So what I'm going to do is I have a pallet that I have staged for sales order picking. So this pallet is specifically for this customer in this sales order, and it's already been staged from production. So if I go in and look up that pallet or scan that pallet in here, so P201, I can look at the contents on it, and you'll notice that the contents are exactly as what's on the sales order. So for example, in this case, I have my 3 stock codes with the quantities that are for matching that sales order. And this has been staged for sales order picking. So as soon as I post this transaction, it's going to apply all of the content on that pallet against the sales order. So if I need to print any new labels at that point, I can do that as well. And what it allows you to do is issue all the materials into that ship status. So now if we take a look at this order, we're going to notice all of the contents that were on that pallet have now been issued against that sales order. And the nice thing about pallet tracking is we still abide by all the rules that are set within your SysPro and riteSCAN system. So for example, if you don't allow pickers to overpick on a sales order, it's not going to allow them to issue a pallet if it contains more than what's expected on that sales order. Or if there's a stock code that's not for the sales order on that pallet, it's not going to allow them to issue that complete pallet. So it still abides by all the validations and accuracy that riteSCAN has built into its system. And it also carries over everything from SysPro as well. So that integration is still very tight with SysPro, and it's still validating to make sure that your inventory is accurate and correct when you're performing transactions within riteSCAN. So now that we've taken a look at the orders, let's actually dive into the manufacturing side of things. This is where it can be very beneficial for the manufacturing processes that people have set up today. So if you're staging kits with a pallet for WIP to be consumed and somebody's staging that pallet and you want to issue it to a job, let's take a look at how I can issue a pallet to the job. So I have a job set up and we'll take a look at that structure, the bill of materials for that job. So as you can see here, I have 5 items on this bill of materials with a quantity of 1 for production to be issued to it. Nothing has been currently issued yet. So what I can do is I had an operator go out to the warehouse and pick a pallet of all the items that need to be staged for this job. And we're going to take a look at applying that pallet. So basically issuing that kit of all the materials directly to the job. So I have a pallet that's staged now, and we can scan that pallet ID in here to the system. We can take a look at all the materials on it, and you'll notice now that there's 4 components here that are on this pallet with a quantity of 1. However, there was 5 materials on the job. So we'll take a look at issuing this complete kit. When I post this pallet to the job, it's going to work just as job issue works with a stock code today, except for now it's issuing all of those materials within 1 transaction. So all the operator has to do is scan that pallet ID, and it's going to issue all the contents and validate that against what's expected on the job. So it's going to go through that same validation process to make sure everything is correct on that pallet, matching the job. So if we view the job now, you can see that all 4 of the materials that were on that pallet have been correctly issued against this job, and now there's just the 1 remaining outstanding material allocation that wasn't on the pallet. So it's a very quick and easy way for, rather than previously you would have to issue each material separately as its own stock code, now I can do that all within 1 quick scan when I know everything's already staged and ready to go for the system. The next thing we're going to take a look at is receiving finished goods onto a pallet. So we're going to pull up another job in the job receipt module. We can pull that job up here. So we have an outstanding quantity of 10 to receive as finished goods. And I'm going to put the bin location that I want to receive those into. I'm just going to receive them into bin location FG. And then I'm going to select the pallet that I want to issue it to. So at this point, I can now generate a new pallet ID again. So we're going to generate another pallet ID, select OK, and then what we're going to do is post this transaction. So as soon as I process this PO receipt, it's going to generate the new pallet, and it's going to receive all of those finished goods directly onto that pallet. So if I wanted to print my pallet ID at this point, I could set up riteSCAN to automate the printing process and print that pallet tag. That could be applied directly to the pallet as I'm receiving the finished goods onto it. So we can follow your process and kind of fit that right into what you may be doing today and being able to consume that pallet down the line as well. So it's a nice streamlined way of being able to receive those items right onto pallets. So You can do that multiple times. So if you're receiving finished goods every quantity of, say, 10, you can receive in 10 and put them on a pallet and receive in the next 10 and put those on the next pallet as well. So as you've kind of seen how pallet tracking is working in all of the different modules of riteSCAN, we still need a way to be able to manage it and monitor it. So being this is functionality above SysPro, we have the pallet maintenance utility. What the pallet maintenance utility is it applies the ability to automatically manage, create, delete, and edit pallets as they're within your operations. So let's take a little bit better look here. So the first thing you can do is you can view all of your pallets within inventory. So you can see here I have all my pallet IDs, and then I can have the statuses of each of those pallets as well. I can see where they're located, the bin location, and search and filter these lists to find whatever I need. So let's take a look at this first pallet here, P111. So with looking at this pallet, I can take a look at all the items if I need to make any edits to these items. I can update my quantities, lots, and serials and all of that information within the pallet here. You can also delete an item, so I can delete one of these stock codes from the pallet as well if I don't want it on this pallet anymore. I need to reconcile things or move it to a new pallet. You can also transfer items. So for example, if you need to perform a transfer of moving stock code A100, I want to move this to a different pallet, you can do that in here as well. You can perform a print. So if you need to print the contents of a pallet, I could come in here and print the contents of a pallet or a pallet ID as well. The other thing you can do is a stock take process on the pallet. So if I want to perform a stock take on the pallet, I can come through and do all my counts on a pallet to verify that my quantities are correct, verify that all of my stock codes are correct, and go through a basic cycle count with each of the pallets in inventory and perform that process very quickly to verify all my counts and that my inventory is accurate and correct within pallet management. I can also come in here and create new pallets. So if I need to generate a new pallet, so let's take a look at generating a new pallet. So I create the pallet ID, and then I could come in and put the warehouse and bin location that I want it in. So we're going to put it in warehouse N, which is not a multi-bin company. And then add the new items. So if you want to add stock codes, I can go into my stock code query and view things. I can also just add the stock codes as necessary in here as well with the quantities and all the information associated with it. You can also set the pallet status. Now this is typically taken care of within each of the transactions that are performed. However, if I'm monitoring it and maintaining it from the pallet maintenance menu, I can go and make the adjustments as necessary. Typically, we recommend that the pallet maintenance utility is something that's used by a specific supervisor or somebody that higher level permissions. You can definitely lock this down because typically you want the pallets being consumed in each of the modules versus managing it from this side. This is more of a supervisor's position of validating, monitoring, and making sure everything's correct from the pallet management side of things. So now that we took a look at the pallet management, we're going to not save our changes here. Let's actually go back into the presentation, and I just kind of want to follow up on a few of the items within the presentation as well to talk about how all of this links together. You know, how does this still work with SysPro and things like that. So give me just a second as I transition back into the presentation. All right. So now that we're back on the presentation, we're going to go to the next slide here. So it's really extending the capabilities of SysPro with pallet tracking. It's one of the gaps within SysPro that we're able to successfully fulfill while keeping the same very tight integration with the E.net portion of SysPro. So keeping that accuracy, keeping that validation, and keeping that real-time data movements out on the shop floor So we're being able to take what riteSCAN really does well and add that functionality of pallet tracking that's above and beyond SysPro. So, and it really helps streamline your efforts with the bulk transactions, because what it's ultimately about is time. How can we save your operators time? And if we can reduce the number of scans, by 3 or 4, that really adds up over time. Being able to provide those bulk transactions for what you're probably already doing currently in your operations and mimicking that within riteSCAN to fit your needs. So why do SysPro users really prefer riteSCAN? And really what it comes down to is riteSCAN wraps a solid architecture with smart and simple functionality alongside our responsive service and support. We really pride ourselves in our tech support. And even better yet, riteSCAN is very tightly integrated with SysPro. So keeping up to date with the ongoing updates and enhancements to SysPro, we keep that compatibility as SysPro's changing, we're changing, utilizing that. So there's no downtime to your business and there's no interruptions to your warehouse operations. In a nutshell, really riteSCAN is just a smart, simple, and stable solution that you're able to provide your operators out on the warehouse floor to easily help improve their jobs as well as improve your accuracy of your inventory and the efficiency of your operators out on the floor. So the other benefits of riteSCAN is riteSCAN's a commercial package. There's no need to wait to automate. We've got you covered, honestly. First, since riteSCAN is a commercial grade solution, it really just works right out of the box. But it can still be easily customized to fit your workflows. And you can implement riteSCAN, and riteSCAN will transition with you as your business operations changes and things like that. riteSCAN is going to be able to accommodate those changes without delays and without compatibility issues. When SysPro users first began migrating to version 7, RiteSoft was really right there with them, helping provide a fully tested version of riteSCAN that was very simple to upgrade and really helped with that process. I mean, it's as simple as switching a switch in riteSCAN, and we're able to go through that upgrade process by flipping it from SysPro 6.1 version to SysPro 7 version. So really keeping it simple for our users and keeping that compatibility with SysPro. Second, implementation is really a snap. riteSCAN downloads and installs in less than 2 hours, and I can't emphasize that enough, how easy riteSCAN is to get it installed and set up and testing within your environment. We really pride ourselves in trying to keep that simple integration process and implementation to get our customers up and running. We understand that your resources are limited, and we try to find ways that we can utilize best practices, giving the growing skilled labor shortage and reducing training requirements are very critical to how we develop our product. riteSCAN users can typically be trained in less than probably 30 minutes, and they'll be out and using the system very quickly and understanding what it's doing to help provide a better platform to do their job. So warehouse automation, really ultimately what it comes down to is sharpening your competitive edge in the marketplace. So really, perhaps you decided not to implement any new software until you upgrade to SysPro 7 or anything like that that may be holding you back from moving ahead. But really that decision may be costing money. riteSCAN is a solution that's very quickly and easily able to be implemented into your warehouse to help sharpen your competitive edge. Get it out there and start utilizing some of the modules of riteSCAN to really increase your inventory accuracy and get you to an operation that can be more lean and more productive and more profitable in the end. Warehouse staff wastes a lot of hours looking for misplaced items or missing items in inventory, or I think it's over in bin location E, when really I walk all the way there and find nothing in that bin location for what I'm looking for. And that labor costs money, and that's where riteSCAN comes into play, and we really help try to reduce the errors ahead of time, which saves you time and money in the long run. Every error that you're able to prevent saves you a lot of time backtracking and trying to figure out how to solve that error that may have been found a week later or things like that. So really, there's no need to wait. riteSCAN can help reduce your labor and inventory costs right now. Customers often will retain their investment within 12 months on implementation. Just the stock take process alone, being able to reduce the amount of team members it takes to go through a stock take, or being able to get your inventory accurate enough that your accounting allows you to move to cycle counts, things like that are all ways that we can help. For example, one of our customers implemented riteSCAN, and they estimated that they saved about 1,100 to 1,200 man hours in inventory transfers. They also saved about 150 man hours in receiving during the first 12 months of implementation, just because those manual process, they can be very time consuming and take a long time. And what pallet tracking does is it takes it to another level. It allows you to reduce those man hours even more by making a more streamlined and more efficient process with inventory accuracy throughout your warehouse operations. So one of the other things that I like to talk about, because it gets me excited, where is RiteTime going and what's that product roadmap look like? We really want to share these things with customers to show the vision of RiteSoft and where our company is going and things like that. So what's on our product roadmap is the Android device compatibility is one of the big things that development's looking at. As you're probably aware, some of the changes with hardware are taking place with Windows CE devices and things like that. We really want to get to a platform that's compatible with Android because it is one of the up-and-coming devices in the marketplace. So that's definitely in our vision plan. Also, one of the big ones that I'm very excited about personally is the pick, pack, and ship enhancements. We've been spending a lot of time trying to find ways to enhance the picking process as well as add functionality for packing items and shipping integrations as well within riteSCAN. So we're trying to develop a complete solution that provides a pick, pack, and ship solution to our customers that's very effective to their operations and really just streamlines their whole sales order picking process from start to finish. As I talked about earlier, pallet tracking was introduced in the fall, so we're constantly looking at enhancements for pallet tracking, and we're getting feedback from current customers using riteSCAN's pallet tracking functionality to help enhance it and grow it and make it even more within riteSCAN. So pallet staging enhancements is one of the big things that we're looking at as well, being able to help operators stage these pallets, providing a process around staging pallets and things like that. So we're always looking at pallet tracking enhancements and things that are on the move. RiteSoft is a very agile company, and we're looking at how we can keep up to date with our products and provide our customers the best ability we can to really just help their operations. Ultimately that's what our goal is as a company, is to help streamline and to make your operations more efficient and more profitable in the end. So now that we've kind of talked about all of those things, let's take any questions that we have.
Okay, Ryan, it looks like we've got a couple questions here. The first one is, I'm not too familiar with riteSCAN. What is used for the pallet tags?
So there's a number of different things that can be used for pallet tags. We work with a hardware partner that can really help provide exactly what you may need for a pallet tag. There's people that use large labels, and depending on what your environment is, there's different styles of labels that can be best to your environment, whether you're working in a freezer or if you have things that are moving indoors and outdoors. But there's a number of different types of styles of labels that can be used. I've also seen others that have a more formalized pallet tag, and basically it's a pallet tag that sticks with their pallets, and they reuse all of their pallets internally. So, and they can be just screwed right onto their box if they have large boxes that they're using as pallets and different things like that. So really it's quite a wide variety of what could be used for managing those pallets and scanning the barcode into the system.
Okay, this is slightly related. Earlier you mentioned that riteSCAN can print labels. Does the pallet tracking module require the use of label printing software?
So it doesn't require the use of label printing software. You do have the abilities to utilize third-party label printing software to automate that process. So as you're going through these things, customers see a real benefit in being able to automate that transaction and printing process at the same time, but it is not a requirement. You can definitely have your own process around how you label your pallets and go through consuming those labels and things like that. So.
Okay. The next question I have here is, how would you pick a pallet that you plan to issue to a job? Is there an interface that shows you what allocations exist on the job that you're picking for?
So right now, what most customers are doing is they have a pick ticket that their operators are going out and picking all the allocations for a job. But as I spoke about earlier, one of the enhancements that we're planning to make with pallet tracking is a staging process. So we're creating a user interface around that process of picking the items or allocations for a job and staging them onto a pallet to be consumed. So that's definitely something in our roadmap. Right now, a lot of our customers are doing it through a pick ticket and then just staging that on the pallet to be consumed for job issue. But there are things that we're looking at to try to facilitate that process within the riteSCAN user interface as well.
Okay. Another question here. Can pallets handle serial numbers and lots?
So yes, definitely pallet tracking is going to follow the same procedures that riteSCAN typically follows with lot numbers and serial numbers. So you're able to issue specific serial numbers or specific lot numbers to a pallet, and it's going to manage those pallet serial numbers and lot numbers that are on it throughout each of the movements that that pallet's going through specifically for that lot number and those serial numbers on the pallet.
Okay. All right. Um, could you talk a little bit more about how pallet tracking helps prevent errors?
Yeah, so pallet tracking really follows a lot of the same guidelines as riteSCAN and SysPro functionality while still adding functionality that's above SysPro. Being able to provide the validation process with multiple stock codes or quantities on a pallet as they're being consumed in each of the transactions of riteSCAN. So for example, if I try to issue a pallet that is a stock code that's not on the job, it's not going to allow me to perform that transaction. It's going to still give me the error message and say, hey, you need to fix this. The stock code isn't available on this job issue, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Another question here. When doing PO receipts, can I receive items onto multiple pallets?
Yeah, so in the PO receiving process, you're able to receive each of your items onto multiple pallets through the post functionality. So when you're receiving it in, each time you receive material, you would receive it onto a pallet and post that transaction, and then go and receive the next material that you want to put onto the next pallet that you're creating at that time. So you can kind of differentiate which items you're receiving onto which pallets through that post functionality.
Okay. One last question here. What modules is pallet tracking available in with riteSCAN?
So pallet tracking is available in, like we went through today, each of the modules that we went through today. So that would be the stock take process, warehouse and bin transfers. So those are in the inventory module or inventory area. It would also be able to be used, I believe, within expense issue. That's another one that can be consumed with pallet tracking. So if you're expensing out a complete pallet, you can do that process. What we just covered earlier, PO receipts, you can definitely use it in the PO receipt process, as well as the goods in transit is another one that can be consumed. So very similar to the warehouse transfers, but if you use the goods in transit modules within SysPro, it works with those as well. The sales order picking process is the other one that it can be used for with staging. And then the last would be in the manufacturing module would be job receipts and job issue as well. So those would be the two that you could use it in there. We don't have it in kitchen because it kind of alleviates the process of needing kits because you're building them on the pallet ahead of time. So.
Okay, another question just came in. Do the pallet ID numbers show on SysPro reports? Example for lot traceability.
So right now, SysPro doesn't have any of the functionality to send that information or put it into SysPro. So it is only handled currently within riteSCAN. However, there have been ways that we've been looking at from a development aspect to maybe utilize custom form fields to be able to update that pallet information, but it's still something that's in development right now.
Okay. Ryan, I think that's all the questions that we have.
All right. Well, that's great. If anyone does have questions or needs a more personalized demo or kind of wants to understand how pallet tracking can fit specifically to their operations, you can definitely reach out to either support or Brett in sales. He can definitely get you in contact with whoever you need to be to demo the product even more, or pricing, things like that. Feel free just to reach out to us and we'll definitely get your answers. But we appreciate you all joining us today, and I appreciate being able to do a webinar, and hopefully you're able to take something from it and maybe apply that to your operations and things like that. So feel free to reach out to us, and our next webinar, you can keep an eye out for our next webinar invite. It should be in May, and what that's going to cover likely is the lot traceability within riteSCAN. So really how we can use lot traceability more streamlined within riteSCAN and applying that to SysPro's lot traceability as well. So thank you all for joining us today.